Good morning, Milwaukee, or good evening, Milwaukee, as the case may be. I want to thank Tom Hogan for setting up the Milwaukee Poetry Series first Friday via Zoom. I'm an amateur at this, but I think we're going to do all right. Tom invited the Oregon Poetry Association to read as the featured reader. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 readers tonight from the Oregon Poetry Association. I'm Bruce Parker. I'm president of this wild and crazy bunch. I'd like to introduce our first reader, Leah Stenson. In addition to poetry, Leah has published essays, editorials, feature articles, and a textbook. Finishing Line Press published her poetry chapbooks, Heavenly Body, oof, that's a good one. Heavenly Body, 2011, and The Turquoise Bee and Other Love Poems in 2014. Turning Point Press published her first full-length poetry book, Everywhere I Find Myself, in 2017. Her hybrid memoir, Life Revised, was published by Cirque Press in 2020. She served as a regional editor of Alive at the Center, Contemporary Poems from the Pacific Northwest, from Ooligan Press in 2013, and co-edited Reverberations from Fukushima, 50 Japanese Poets Speak Out, from Inkwater Press in 2014, with Asao Sarukawa Aroldi. So I present you with Leah Stenson.
Thank you so much, Bruce. Thank you for getting us all together for this occasion. And of course, thanks to Tom Hogan for the Milwaukie series. I'm glad it's still going strong despite the pandemic. So I've just published a hybrid memoir entitled Life Revised, and I'm going to read from that book today. So it is hybrid, so it's prose and poetry, but I will be reading 3 poems. And the first one is entitled Aftermath. And I hope this will give you a little sense of what this book is about. Essentially, it's concerning a suicide of my grandfather and the accidental death of my grandmother. And they're referred to as Nani and Poppy. So here we go with Aftermath. Poppy, this is your granddaughter, who you showered with money and who you pinched on the cheek, murmuring Bella whenever I came to visit. My love wasn't strong enough to make you want to live. Now, a half-century later, I'm still trying to reach you, offering prayers for the repose of your soul. Abandoned by the fates, you feared the recurrence of cancer and spoke in a rasping whisper, no longer able to bellow in anger and pain. You didn't know when you committed suicide in your shiny new Cadillac, you would take Nani with you to the underworld. You couldn't imagine you would leave me alone to navigate a sea of suffering, to spend a half a lifetime mining my darkness. So this book involves my relationship with a lot of people, but maybe the primary one, and maybe one of the most troubling ones, is my mother. So it's a number of poems related to her, and I'm going to read one entitled Uncharted Waters, which is showing the conflict in our relationship, and then end with one that comes towards the end of the book, showing resolution. Uncharted Waters. I say to my mother as we dine on filet of sole in a dimly lit South Shore restaurant, your father killed your mother. The company of witnesses, wine, and neutral space embolden me to span decades of silence vast as the ocean. My words, a rogue wave plowing into a bridge, take her out over her head in their wake. Struggling to regain her footing, she stabs the air with her fork and spews. How dare you say that? You, the apple of his eye. And the last poem I'm going to read today, Resurrection. Mother, I wrote a poem in which I forgave your sin of omission, your fear of the truth. I know I forgave you because in a dream you were my destination. I got into a taxi with a box of long stem roses in the middle of the night, not knowing where to find you, but confident I would. The driver knew the route by heart, and I had already paid the karmic fare. A week later, you phoned from the grave saying you wanted to come visit me. Never in life had we spoken so kindly, so gently to one another. Not even death is permanent. As the author of my life, I can forgive you, resurrect you, cast you in a new light. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Leah. That was wonderful. I really enjoy hearing you read and seeing you too. Secondly, I'd like to introduce Diane Corson. She is co-chair of membership for Oregon Poetry Association, and she is a wonderful reader, an artist, and a poet. Diane, you're on.
Diane, please unmute yourself.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks to Tom and the Milwaukie Poetry Series, of course. We're all learning this new world. This is a prose poem that I wrote in May of this year. The house feels so different now as I look down through 2 rooms joined by arches. There are chairs, a table bare, where there is a buffet table laid with unopened mail. To-do lists left undone, no scratch marks, no cross-outs across the lists, where there is a curtain never drawn, never thought open. Through the next arch, there is a kitchen that is left not entertained by you and some other one who came then that night and left a note on a side table, roughly in a screwed up ball, that when opened would have read the key to everything. And we never saw him again with his muddy motorcycle boots and his thoughts to come again the next time on his way around the world. And where you always sat in that same switched out chair because you didn't like the one that sat there, because it felt like you were leaving the planet in a slingshot and it rubbed you the wrong way, or whatever you could have been, and where the girls always sat on the sofa in mostly the same pattern, because when they arrived, they were always in the same order, like their personalities that would resonate with such beauty in their laughs and the ways that they slapped their thighs or the one next to them, or the way that they looked at each other in the deepest blur and would agree with the last remark, or when he would always look and ask the same question of the same man when the room went quiet and they would all listen to his caved in chest and to his gas fire in the background. Not for effect, really, but pure drama. And then it would all end abruptly, and they would all leave down the steps, and the living room and the arches would all go back to being the way they are now without you. Lots of remembrance. These are sort of all kind of dark. This one is named Dark Places. Dappled light on the stone patio recedes as it moves, slows, then disappears, then moves again as a vibration. The dapples, light and dark, go very dark, where you do not go. The non-light, the ground itself dark with the light as it moves. You are there, the in-between, not wanting to step, as if unknown where darkened shade lingers, spots and rounded leafy patches reveal where to land, perhaps. Step lightly, and when it moves to you, step again to the other side. That is very loosely related to the pandemic. I have one more. I took apart a seed that had floated by me as I sat on the patio. Seed coddled like an egg. In a minute, a minute cloud of cotton. A light, airy casing designed by the mother tree. She bows to send her seed to float. At random, the seed drops down with less wind and bumps into a wall or a car and clings for a ride to a field of grass where it can become a tree, a cottonwood. And there inside the puff, the airy, confident seeds, roots were enmeshed within the puff, the cotton, in its cloud, the carrier, the distribution agent. Entwined through the minute seeds, but discernible roots held in suspended animation, ready to spring. Now that's all I have for you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Diane. That was terrific. You look great.
Oh, thank you.
Our third reader tonight is Dan Lieberson. He's
Hey, Dan.
the secretary, therefore he is our recording angel. Born in Rochester, New York, Dan attended Northwestern, where he received a BA in history, and SUNY at Buffalo, where he earned a PhD in English. He's retired from a career as a consulting medical writer and lives in San Francisco with his wife and two rambunctious kittens. In his poetry, he tries to tell stories in a disciplined way and exploit the sounds and rhythms of the language. 4 of his 5 self-published books are illustrated, as he believes poetry is stronger in combination with visual images. He has published individual poems in many small journals, including the Haight-Ashbury Literary Journal, the Neo-Victorian Cochlea, South Post Poetry Journal, Black Buzzard Review, and many more. Dan is also the author of The Golden Spider, a young adult fantasy novel. So with that, I'd like to turn the mic over to Dan.
Thank you, Bruce, and thank you, Tom, for inviting us all. Minor correction, I live in San Francisco part of the time and now in Cottage Grove, Oregon, which may be my permanent residence before long, the way things are going. I have 3 poems. The first is from my book, Animal Songs, which is all poems involving animals in some way. Who Killed Cock Robin? The morning sang to itself, soothed to robin's egg blue, a sky that had started gray. Flowers opened their mouths and uttered musical musk, while 2 butterflies twirled in a blossoming lilac bush. A robin strutted, note upon a line, his breast puffed as he called all the surrounding air his own. 14 years of peace had not taught my friend and me a way to honor this. He dared, I aimed and pulled and shot the robin with his pellet gun. Fallen, he arched and threshed the grass as if to fly through earth, not air. I said, I don't believe it, tasting bile. What a shot, my friend replied. We'd better put him out of misery. He set the barrel to the bird's head and shot Cock Robin dead. The world in the yard skewed, and I emptied like a sieve, knowing at last, clear as the blue glass sky, that I and everybody I loved would die. Nothing else changed. One bird song gone, that was all. Still, in their bush, the twin yellow butterflies twirled. The next is from another book of mine, Morning and Begin Again. Eurydice. She does not want to come back, yanked from shade to life, doggedly following, she hopes he will turn. But watch, when he turns, she reaches, though relieved when, sucked back, she grasps nothing. Does she want life despite herself? She wants life, but on her terms, not as he wants her, possessed. In Shadowland, she enjoys not having to be beautiful and indulge his demands. Alive, she couldn't cope with being a woman again. Peevish, they would fight because she no longer cared only to please him. In Hades' cool depths, all quiet shade, no daylight conditions to be met. Simply alone, she can rest, impenetrable. She knows the general ache, but knew it even alive. Now she knows peace, responsible only to herself. In the glow of her aloneness, she knows she does not want to want. And lastly is a fairly recent poem that just took second place in the William Stafford Memorial Prize Contest for 2020. It's about poet James Wright, an Ohio poet, which hopefully many of you are familiar with him. If not, check him out on the internet. He's written some wonderful poems. Reading James Wright. Brief, blunt words probe hard, or caress with the gentlest touch, like drifting fur torn from animals as they fight or rip their prey. He was a large, blockish man, dead drunk when I saw him read, the most vulnerable, terrified human I think I'll ever meet. He wrote a poem about the dread of getting naked beside your love. Exposure has no mercy on the body's faults. Ravaged Ohio, once the green, lovely land of the Lenape, now locked in dirty winter, mourned its death through him. He was its saddened simulacrum, a state of helpless bulk, yearning for rescue, buried beyond rescue. Wrecked land, wrecked life. Darkness overtook him, invaded, pressed in from out from in, coal slurry, black smothering, yet even crushed all ways, he sang on. He sang his poems because he saw no other living choice, only dying ones. Stay drunk or take the blessed cure, oblivion. Thanks very much. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Dan. I love a good story. I enjoyed that very much, and I'm sure that people in Milwaukee will too. Our next reader is Stella Guillory. She's an LPA board member and conducted our recent adult poetry contests. She's a good judge of poems. She's a scientist, and it shows in her work. Stella, over to you.
Okay. Since my first and only chapbook published last year in June, I have not been writing too much, but thanks to our writing group, Leah and Dale, we're all in the same group, and that helped me to come up with the following 3 poems. The first poem is called "The Tale of a Raven." It's a wedge. 2 ravens fly. They serrate the blue sky. Their tails define the V for victory. The third one perches on a bare hemlock tree, eyeing the south side of the ascending trails, the Palmer Glacier, the Pearly Gate, the wide east of Mount Hood. My second poem, Centering, Making the Orchid Lay. A whole flat of cool dendrobium orchids, heirloom from Maui, all mine, cool, not chilled. I have been given a lay needle, shining, not rusty. Penetrating, I insert the needle through the heart of the dendrobium. The needle emerges from the center of the bloom. A single dendrobium blossom at a time, touching the cool orchids, touching the abundance, feeling fortunate, feeling loved. My third poem, Flower Arrangement. In the vicinity of my altar, holiness displayed. The cascading baby's breath, the Queen Anne's lace, the god dancers. Baby's breath, descending in clouds of pale green and white. I cannot breathe, Mama. The no play, the mask, the smooth wooden mask. It is stepping into an open field. Salah leaves, leathery to the touch. The darker green harnesses the energy of sunbeams. Children receive Holy Communion for the very first time. I see the heliconia draping the vase. Imagine the flame of the Holy Spirit descending. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. That was just lovely. I really enjoyed that very much. Next up is our Jennifer Rude. Jennifer is vice president of OPA, and as such, she's backed me up. I'll be so glad when she can back me up permanently. She lives in Grants Pass, if I'm not mistaken, and she is a teacher and also a parent, which means she's a teacher twice over in these days. Jennifer, what have you got for us?
Well, I have 3 poems as well. And you are correct. I do a lot with kids. So at least 2 of the poems have a child in them. And then I want to end with a note of hope with a poem called Hope that is just one of my favorite poems. So the first one is called A Broken Trowel, and it tells a story. It was published in Green Prints earlier this year. So here we go. Little Riley, the boy from next door, rang my doorbell and asked to use my trowel, which I had left out in the front yard, and which he saw as a very useful tool, if only he could get permission to use it. I was impressed with his language. Trowel is a very specific word and a very useful word if a small boy wants to dig with a neighbor's garden tool. The word dug at my heart, as did his polite asking, and I could not say no. Although I liked that trowel, as it was sturdy and thick and had been given to me by my other neighbor who grew too old and sick to get out and dig with it anymore. I knew that the trowel might not survive this lending, and the truth is it didn't. When the boy came back to ring my doorbell again, to tell me that he had broken the tip of my tool as he tried to pry up a stone from his yard, and when he looked at me to see how my face would turn with this news, and I could see that he was ready to receive whatever words might rain down, I was impressed again. It's okay, I told him. The trowel was old, and I have another. Absolution was not what he expected because he hesitated and asked how much it cost, calculating how he might make this right with me, the kind neighbor lady who smiled each time she opened her door, even when his little brother rang my doorbell for the 3rd time to offer me another fig leaf he had just plucked from my own tree. He knew my disposition towards small things. There are many useful things, tools, yes, but words too, and everything underneath them. It is possible to plant kindness with a broken trowel. What's that? My second poem was published in 2018 in Slant, and it's called Fostering a Better World. It was inspired by a teacher friend of mine who decided with his wife that they would take in a foster child who needed them. And so it's Fostering a Better World. We are seeking a small dresser, a few empty drawers where he can tuck away his things, few as they are, because we are bringing him home tonight, because a piece of furniture speaks stability, because it is an anchor that holds you in place. It says, tonight you will not drift away. It says, when you come back to this place tonight, things will be the same as you left them this morning. It says, you belong here. It is somewhere you can keep your things and gather your permanence, tethering you to tomorrow. It is a comfort. We are seeking a dresser and more for this boy, for this world. We are bringing this boy home. And, oh, thank you. And then this one was it's Moments Before Midnight. And this was published in 2018 as well. It's called Hope. And I wrote it before 2020, of course, hit, and things just seemed to go even crazier than they were back in 2018. But it's about holding on to something that can be useful, again, a useful tool, and to carve a better life. So, hope. Keep it at your hip like a knife. It is your best tool. Do not forget that you carry it with you. You have sheathed it in doubt, which conceals its power, but do not forget. Do not forget to take it out and admire how it gleams. It is yours. No, it is yours to use. Use it. Use it to pry open closed doors. Use it to slice through old paradigms. Use it to sever the pervasive patterns of what has been from the possibilities of what can be. Use it to cleave injustice from the body of the land and from the experience of its people. Use it to carve new monuments. Use it to cut through the bone cage of fear that surrounds your own heart so you can free the doves that flutter there, already beating their wings. Take it with you into your future and into your children's future, where you will build your best life with this, your best tool. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jennifer. That's very moving work. Well read, too.
Thank you.
Our next reader is John Miller. John is founder of the Ars Poetica workshop, from which many of us have greatly profited. He also hosts Free Range Poetry here in Portland, a series of readings and open mics. And he serves on the board of Willamette Writers. He's a man of many talents, his greatest of which is his poetry. Take it away, John.
Thank you so much to Bruce and Diane. This is quite improvised and actually beautiful. So Jennifer and Dan, it's very nice to meet you both. I'm going to read 3 poems, the first of which, one of the ways I've stayed sane in pandemic is my friend Rebecca Smolin has been leading generative workshops 2 times a week. She's trained in the Gateless method, and her Tuesday sessions focus on Greek mythology. So my first poem is Bellerophon, Considering the White Horse. This is taken obviously from the myth of Pegasus. The question is found or lost, trailed in wellspring, the landscape in water, in distance as purpose, or escape, or circuit, as the world as what's lost in asking. The question this rider looking for a ride, finding it, having answer as a golden saddle to throw over, losing it. The ride stung by the gadfly of not knowing and you're thrown. Purpose this rider, never understanding the ride, wanting it or taking it or living it down. Look at it, the landscape and water. Distances from one shore to another, these depths of feeling or their depth. The question can give so much, it can leave you lame. The second poem I wrote yesterday while at the online Willamette Writers Conference. I took a fantastic workshop with Claudia Savage, where she asked us to explore one word of power specific to ourselves. So this is called One Word. Bones, which my father took from Star Trek. A show just then gone from television by the time he gets to this country. The character is whip smart, as a doctor should be from years of study, duty, and practice, and he is skeptical. Like a voice out of the past, questioning and conservative in the midst of the future. My father says he names me so because I am thin as a baby, thriving but thin. But I hear a radio interview with a social scientist who notes children who attend preschool will have the advantage. Who tells my mother to send me to one? My doctor, Dr. Ortiz, spoke with a gruff voice and plainly to Colombian mothers, stop doing that. Do this now. Mine is downtown somewhere near Brooklyn Borough Hall, and there was one day green pistachio pudding. I don't remember how many other children I shared the room with, but a long line of us would walk outside holding hands 2 by 2, traversing broken sidewalk. I get sent to the hot corner one day to face the wall when I have stomped on a set of cellar doors. They make a great steel clatter and shake like collapse itself. I also learned to read. Now, the third poem is very short, and it's also taken from the Willamette Writers Conference. It was a workshop this morning with Christopher Luna, who some of you may know as the longtime poet laureate of Clark County. He led a 2-part workshop this morning called The Work, which is his longtime kind of generative workshop, now held online. He asked us to consider a great poem by Pamela Sneed that talked about the deaths of Black men. Obviously, that's been on our minds lately. So this is a very short poem called Their Deaths. Eric, Brianna, George, everyone. I admit, at first, I felt the practice nothing of refusal. And shit, not again. I will have to approach my heart at its thundering gates and ask it, will you let me in? Let me change? Thank you very much, everyone.
You do not disappoint, John. Very powerful stuff. I enjoyed that very much indeed. I'm going to conclude with 3 poems of my own. They're little guys. I hope you enjoy them. The first one is called The Emptiness. Formed emptiness is what the world is in the void of space. A bit of emptiness for a time formed, fit into shapes like water in a vase. There is continual repetition, reiteration, like snowflakes that pile, drift, melt, matter into 3 states, dirty, lost, and broken. But this earth and all that is in it is not a metaphor. It presents and represents itself, the liquor in the glass and the effect on the mind. Meadow, tornado, form torn by the forces enclosed within it. And whatever else the universe may hold, it will not take this form again. I too am naked vacancy in ill-fitting, fragile, fatally flawed form, a mirage which, upon approach, will shift shape and disappear to leave nothing behind. So I must reach out and touch your shoulder, feel your form beside me to reassure myself that you are warm and firm, that form has meaning and meaning takes its form as bodies, alive in the swirl, awake to the world. The second poem, The Earth Accepts the Fallen. Who are the fallen, if not all of us, dry and light, ready to rage, unable to make any response to darkness and oblivion beyond, like dead bats, desiccate, or bones of birds, made for flight. At the click of a lighter, the merest spark to ignite, spontaneous as a plane crash, undoing us. We reveal a downward trajectory, deep into an unsown field. The earth receives us. Third, waiting while the wife buys groceries, I see death. I see death go by on a little bicycle, riding on the sidewalk because he is afraid of traffic. He has come all the way from downtown, last night's battleground. A car had hit a protester, and now death fears traffic. His little bicycle is so frail, his black hood frightens no one. Downtown is several miles away, but death is not tired. He only wants to avoid getting hit by a car. Well, thank you, Tom Hogan, and thank you, Milwaukie, for your attention. OPA is very pleased to share our poetry with everyone. I hope you've all enjoyed it and that we'll meet again in person one day.